Hey, gang, welcome to this week's High Value Publishing podcast. I'm really excited. This is our first week of the month, and it's time for Jez Walters with What's New in Publishing to join me. And we're going to take a look at what are the most important things that we think have happened over the past month that you should be aware of as a media operator. Jez, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, great to be with you again, Eric.
Good deal. Let's just dive on in. I think we've got some really good stories you and I were talking about earlier today. Let's dive on in and talk about your first one.
All right, Eric. Well, I'm really excited to share this story. I think it's a really, really good one. So, WARC, which is the World Advertising Research Council, came out with a paper last week, and it was consumer trends. What's front of mind for consumers? And what is that 78% of people now want AI generated content to be clearly labeled. Now, how does that impact publishers? Well, there is an opportunity here to differentiate your content away from commoditized AI generated content. Now, a third of websites now coming on stream are AI generated.
Hmm.
Now, what I really like about this story as well is the Alliance for Audited Media, which comes out of Schaumburg in Chicago. They are now doing an AI certification and they've got a whole rule book about what they're looking for, etc. You don't necessarily need to go down that route. You can do your own seal and tell your audience what you are producing and how you are generating your content. It's just about differentiating your content and letting your audience know whether it's AI generated or human generated and the judgment behind it.
I love this quote by Not or Not. AI is great at summarizing, but what we can't replicate is human judgment.
Yeah,
And
exactly
then
that.
I just noticed this quote in your article too here on What's New in Publishing, Jazz, that talking about Google Danny Sullivan urging authors to create unique, authentic, non-commodity content. You and I didn't plan this, but this is going to tie into a story we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, exactly
But
that, Eric. So I just think, it's another way of making your content more special, and the audience needs to know that.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I think that, as I mentioned this before, we have a radio station here, a talk radio station, 850 KOA in Colorado. And they specifically, at the beginning of every one of their news segments, they will say, you know, 100% human, no AI generated. So, I think those kind of things are coming into play
Yeah,
that those outlets that people can trust. And it only takes one or two times to destroy the trust of
yeah,
a reader
exactly.
and
Yeah,
lose them. So I
exactly.
think this is brilliant. So my second one is kind of more of a practical tip. And it's something that actually was released a little bit ago, but I'm starting to see it more and more in play in mainstream now. And this is basically how publishers can ask their readers to choose them as a preferred source. So basically, we'll put this link in the show notes on the blog. But bottom line, here's how it works. Right. So here's a site I work with, BizTimes Milwaukee. You can see this set us as a Google preferred source. What this means when someone does it is when they click it and set you as a preferred source, when they do a search in Google, your content is more likely to appear much higher in the page, right? So when you click it, it literally takes people to a page like this. And, there's the exact syntax. If you want to know, there's the exact syntax of how you create the link. But then they can say, okay, yeah, I want to set Milwaukee Biz Times as a preferred source. So now how's that play out? I then went out and I did a search for I-794, which is a big project going on over in Milwaukee right now. And as I did it, look what the top source was in the Google News pack. Biz Times, Milwaukee Business News, I-74. So they're showing up as a preferred source in there. So I think this is brilliant. It's very easy to implement. You can do it up here. Folks like the Times, they've integrated this Prefer Us on Google right next to their social sharing. So I think to me, this is definitely worthwhile integrating for publishers to get people to prefer you as a source in Google to grow your overall search traffic. And I believe it also, I don't have proof of this, but I'm pretty sure it's going to affect news and just Google News and Google Discover too. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
that's my story.
Eric, when did that come out roughly? Was that over the past few weeks? I haven't seen it
No, I
about
think it
anywhere.
was late last year that that came out, but I've been just seeing it a lot more and more, especially over the past couple of weeks. So it's kind of an older story, but I'm not seeing a lot of publishers have implemented it yet, and I wanted to bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I haven't seen any news publication or in the trade, the trade press talk about this at all. So it's news for me. So I'm going to be running that next week. I think it's a brilliant story.
There you go. There you go. I'll be putting up a how-to article on my site here very soon.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, I'll link to that as well, Eric. So you ready for my next story?
Let's do it.
All right, so this one's about newspapers and magazines, but the printed version. I know that we focus really on digital pretty much primarily, but you know, Media posted a very good article this week, and it was just saying that there is tight supply coming downstream as mills cut newsprint production and ink and etc. So it's a problem with ink, it's a problem with paper, it's a problem with distribution. Is it a major problem now? No, but inflation's running hot. What they're thinking is that in a couple of months' time, if the geopolitical problems don't improve, things might get much, much tighter. And so, really, it was just a heads up for people with a printed magazine or a printed newspaper variant of their publisher portfolio to make sure that they lock in the prices now and do an audit of where they are with newsprint and talk to their suppliers and just make sure that they're buffered for the next few months and perhaps leading on a little bit further into the future. And it's about preparing now for what could possibly come in 2 or 3 or 6 months' time.
And this affects not just newspaper, but other types of paper that magazines would be using too.
Absolutely. It affects all aspects of a publisher's print physical product, whether that's newspapers, magazines, it doesn't matter. They're all going to be affected by this. And it's a very, very good article on Media Post. And they're just saying, look, if you're a publisher and you have that in your portfolio, a printed product, just make sure you're prepared and talk to your suppliers now so that you're buffered. It will be the people who are talking to their suppliers now and just making sure there's contingency in place that are going to be in a good place. And also, it's an opportunity to talk to your readership as well and perhaps prepare them if you feel that things are really going to tighten up. Perhaps, there's a few editorials that can be a paragraph in there just informing them, but that's probably a plan B.
I know that in the case of a lot of B2B trade publications, print has gone away. There's a few B2B trade publications that still have print and they're still profitable, and it's actually a competitive advantage for them. I know that for a lot of news outlets, local, national, print has become obviously less and less of a thing. I do think that where print is still going to play a big piece is going to be in premium paid publications,
Yeah,
like especially city and regional publications.
yeah, exactly that.
5280 magazine out of Denver or D magazine out of Dallas or something like that.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
those are going to still those premium print publications that are paid, I think are still going to be able to afford that, but it's going to be very difficult for purely ad supported businesses to, I think,
Yeah,
survive on
exactly.
print much longer.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
I think it's sign of a wider trend, isn't it? But yeah, it's good that if publishers do have that, not to get caught out.
Yep. All right. Well, my next story is going to be something again, something more kind of practical that I've been working on with a lot of my clients, for example, but it's where I think AI is really going to have the biggest impact on publishers that I'm not seeing a lot of coverage on. We've talked about all of the generative AI impacting search traffic for large folks. We've talked about whether media companies should or should not optimize for generative AI, if they should block AI bots from their site, licensing to AI. We talked about all that stuff. But to me, where AI is going to have the biggest impact on media companies is in the operations side of things, both editorial and other operations. So I'll share with you a couple of things that I've done for a couple of my clients. I'll try to keep it really short, but I wanted to share, for instance, this. One of my publishing clients publishes a lot of regional business news, but they also are tagging content not only by category, but they're tagging content if it's about a specific person or about people or key companies that are mentioned in the article as well. So they've been doing it all manually for several years. on that, and it's great because it has a nice little index of people, index of companies you can cross-reference, and it turns their stories into also a database, not just news items. However, big problem. We would have a lot of duplicates of different entities. For instance, for people, sometimes it would include a suffix like junior. Sometimes it would not include it. Sometimes you'd have doctor so and so. Sometimes it wouldn't include doctor. Sometimes it would be dr period, dr without a period. Sometimes it would be right. There were all these different iterations. In some cases, the same entity may have 5 different iterations that editors had tagged it with, not realizing there was already a duplicate entry in there. And so we did this for both people and for companies. And here's what's fun. I worked with the editor on this particular publication, and within one afternoon, we vibe coded this using Claude Code and created a whole plugin that we dropped into their WordPress website. Now we tested it on a staging site first, but we tested it, and I'll walk you briefly through how it works. But I'm only putting this out because this may not be applicable to every publisher, but I want you to begin to think about what could you do in your publication? What are the things that you need to better operationally utilize AI? So we broke into 5 phases. Phase 1, let's scan for duplicates. Right, so we scan for duplicates. When we did the first run through this, there were like tons of them. Now we're getting down into like kind of the bottom of the barrel in duplicates. But it's like, is it Kate Hill or Katie Hill? Possibly. Anthony Rossi Jr., Anthony Rossi Sr. Are those the same person? John Stolenwork, John Stolenwork Jr. Are those the same person? So you would find these different things that would say, okay, whether it's a high or medium confidence. Then we'd say, okay, let's go to the merge duplicates and let's find out. So this is where the editors can actually do action. And they would say, okay, if they already know the answer, they could choose whether to leave it alone, whether to merge this one into that one, whatever it may happen to be. If they didn't, they could click this little research online button, and it used Anthropic, Claude's API. It would go out, it would search the internet for all the information it could find about John Dye and Jonathan Dye. And it came back and said, these are actually 2 very different entities. Do not merge them. And what was even cool is they even overrode these settings over search. Just nope, don't leave them alone, leave them alone. And then the editor could just click apply, and it would, in the case of where it was merging them, it would keep the right entity, merge all the posts from the duplicate entities to the proper entity, and then delete the duplicate taxonomy items automatically. Then we could go out and we could scan posts, whatever range we want, whatever categories we want, scan posts, find companies, find people that in the post automatically using AI. AI would read the story, look at the taxonomies, assign it. If it found a new person, it would recommend a new person or recommend a new company. Editors could say yes or no. It would apply those tags. And then the last step, we said, well, okay, now we have this index of all these people. But let's say, we have an index for Aaron Bilyeu. What about Aaron Bilyeu? Who is he? And we'd have an index with these stories about that person, but no information about that person. So we said, hey, let's go out using AI. Let's go out, let's research this person. Let's write a business reporter type summary of who this person is. The editor can, and then bring it in here. The editor can overwrite it and then click save description, and it writes that description to that person's profile. By the way, we also keep track of when that description was last updated, so we can go back in, let's say a year later, and show me all the ones that we haven't updated in the last year, and let's re-update them. So this is an example of a plugin that neither the editor nor us, nor me, know how to code plugins, but Claude does. We just put this together. We knew how it wanted it to work. We knew what we wanted to do. We vibe coded this, created this plugin, put it in. I wanted to share that as an idea. The other thing I wanted to share was a couple of kind of reporting things. So one is an email deliverability report where we have Claude go out once a week, like look at all, you could do this for your own entity. You could do this for, you could look at all your analytics, all your metrics and say, hey, create an overall report. But this was an email domain reputation deliverability report, and it actually identified my own domain, New Year View Media, has critical action required because it found that there was an entity out there at HostPapa who was trying to spoof my domain and send emails out as if they were me. Now, good news is I'm already at a DMARC quarantine policy, but we're going to move this to a reject policy because we're not getting any information back. We've reached out to abuse at host pop-up. They won't even talk. They won't even respond. So for all the things that they say they'll do this, they don't. So we're just going to take some steps to quarantine this all out. But this is an example. Had we not been running this report on a regular basis, I wouldn't have known about this and taken steps to protect my email reputation. And so we're doing this for all of the media clients we work with. And then last one was we created another report. Again, Claude happens to be my favorite tool right now. ChatGPT is very capable as well. Gemini is getting there. Perplexity is not yet. Claude happens to be my preferred tool. But this is an ad ops report. And we have a lot of publishers we work with who say they're running website ads through Google Ad Manager or Broad Street ads. They're running Meta ad campaigns on behalf of their advertisers or LinkedIn ad campaigns on behalf of their advertisers. They're running sponsored content that they're tracking in Google Analytics. Eventually, we're going to bring in email systems and be able to track sponsored emails or email advertising and put that in. But literally, we created a prompt that went out to Broad Street, went out to Meta, went out to Google Analytics, found all the elements we've done for this particular client who we've redacted, and pulled together a report for everything that this client had done with this publisher over the last year. And there's every single campaign, every single impression, clicks, CTRs. There's their meta campaigns they did. Here's their sponsored content with the views and active users. This would have taken, an ad ops person 3 hours or so to put together. 3 minutes once we got the prompt right. So these are some of the examples of AI impacting media organizations at the operations level, editorial, ad ops, audience development, that I think are going to be fantastic. And I'm hoping in next month I may even have an example of some great AI interactions for readers and even for advertisers. So there you go. That's my next story.
Yeah, it's another fantastic operational story. Okay, you ready for my next one?
Let's do it.
All right, so this is a story from out of Spain, actually. It's a publication called Diario Vivo. And what they've done is they've turned their journalism into a live experience. So what they would do is they would go to a cafe and talk about on stage, they have a little mini stage set up, and they would talk about the stories they were working on and why they ran them and a little bit more in-depth knowledge about these stories. Anyway, these have become so popular with their audience that they're now into 1,000 seater venues all across parts of Spain. And they've
It's
done
crazy.
very, very well with it. And there is now a live journalism network. I'll provide Eric with the link, but it's just a really good way in in an age that's really heavily digital of people going out in a night, and Diario Vivo doesn't even tell the audiences what they're going to talk about, but they've become such a theatrical event. It just really binds the publication to its audience and really forges a much deeper connection. And Collective in Germany is doing that for their investigative reporting and actually going on stage and saying why they're doing their particular investigation, how far they've got to it. Now, that's a little bit more serious, but the whole live journalism network and all the publications doing this is just another way of creating another product within the portfolio that's perhaps a little bit out of the box and actually creates really good community engagement.
I love this, Jez, because to me it's a new way for media companies to diversify into events and create something, face-to-face events. I could see this possibly even working in a webinar format, but I think that the face-to-face adds something to it. I think this is a brilliant idea. It also ties into the whole trend in the kind of the individual creator space, where we can turn our editors, for example, into stars and
Yes.
really let them integrate, let them talk, let them interact with our readers. I especially see this working well for local media companies, local regional,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Like you
Yeah.
talked about Diario Vivo, specifically focused in Spain. I could see this working for a regional business publication or a regional news outlet or even like a city and lifestyle
Yeah.
publication. I think this is a fantastic, neat idea to take our editorial expertise and turn it into a whole event product.
Yeah, exactly. And 10 years ago, I did one of these for Bob Sachs in London. He came to London, and I thought, right, we'll get our audience involved.
Oh, that's awesome. I love Bob.
Yeah, I know you know him very well, Bo Sachs, and many of you do subscribe to him, I'm sure. And we're, in the top of a London tower. It was open air. It was the summer. We did an event just like that, and we got some really good people there, and they really enjoyed it. It's that sort of thing.
That's fun. I absolutely love that. Um, so I'll go on to my next one quickly here. My next one, again, not really a story, but something that I thought was brilliant. I got to catch a little bit of some of what Danny Sullivan presented on at Google Search Central in Toronto last month. So Danny Sullivan, is kind of the godfather of SEO. He's kind of a spokesperson for Google on there. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant guy. But what I thought was really interesting here was talking through all of, he brought it down to the absolute core. So a lot of media companies are very worried about generative optimization. Are we optimizing our content to be found in generative search results? Right? Google search summaries, Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever it may happen to be. Are we optimizing it? By the way, that's a whole separate discussion. Go check my website. I have a whole discussion I did with local media association on whether media companies should actually allow themselves to be indexed by generative bots or not. Hint, it's not really good for most media companies, but go check that out. But if you decide that there's a whole new industry out there now of these generative engine optimization, GEO, or as he said, or AEO, or AI SEO, or LLM SEO, right? All these different acronyms are coming out there, but it's all about, hey, how do you optimize your content for generative engines? And I thought this was actually brilliant. If you want good generative optimization, do good search optimization. There is no difference. If you're doing the really good job of good search engine optimization, you will be discovered by the generative engines. Period. It's not a separate discipline. Even though every expert is coming out of the woodworks trying to tell you that generative is different. Generative is different. You need to do this. And oh, you need to freak out because you're not yet optimized for generative optimization. But I love what he got into here then. The whole thing of good, what is good SEO? The heart of good SEO is having great content for the people you serve. That's at the heart of this. And this is kind of tying back into some of the things you talked about previously and another story we'll talk about a little bit later. But he was talking about, okay, if you want to show up in AI, here's what you got to do. Follow SEO fundamentals, make good use of structured data. That's an SEO tactic. Have great page experience, another SEO tactic. But more than anything else, unique, authentic, non-commodity content. That is the absolute key to success. And that, by the way, for any media company is going to be your key to success and riding out this whole generative and AI change. If you can have unique, authentic, non-commodity content, you will find a way to win. And then he defined what non-commodity content is. I won't go too deep into this, but then he gave some examples which I thought were brilliant. Right? Commodity content, top 10 things to consider when buying running shoes versus why this customer's shoes collapsed after 400 miles, a wear pattern analysis. Or 2024 kitchen trends you need to see, commodity. Or marble versus grape juice, why I refuse to install stone for a family of 5. That's non-commodity. So I just thought this was actually brilliant, even though he was talking about generative engine optimization, GEO. It came back to say, look, it's all about SEO. And I'm still going to all publishers I talked to today and say, don't worry about generative other than whether you want to block it or not. Focus on really good content that is unique, that is authentic, that is non-commodity, and focus on really good SEO tactics around that, and you will win. So that's my soapbox. I'll get off my soapbox, but it was really good to see Danny Sullivan re-emphasizing that.
Do you know, that's a really good segue into my story. It's exactly the same, actually. It's a theme throughout this podcast. So, as you know, I'm based in Europe, and Stern is one of Germany's most famous iconic media brands. It's a celebrity lifestyle magazine, but over the years, it's broken some huge scoops. In Europe, it's one of the top, actually, publications. It's very famous. So they're essentially a print magazine, and what they've been doing, of course, is going into the digital space, but they haven't been doing it well. And what they haven't been able to do, particularly in a landscape where celebrity news is really commoditized now, you've got such a big landscape of influencers, creators, etc., YouTube channels. They haven't been able to monetize their digital version. So whereas they, as a print product, they were incredibly successful, now as a digital product, they haven't been at all. So what they had to do was not look at the paywall, the funnels, the optimization, they had to go back to scratch. So they did focus groups. They re-looked at their content from the ground up because, at a time of ubiquitous content, what was making their content stand out? It turns out not a lot. So they went back to the drawing board and they looked at what and how they could make their content stand out, which goes back to what you've just been saying. So that once they got that content right, then the digital subs came in. So what the lesson of this whole article was about was that yes, paywalls, funnels, optimization, tactics, onboarding, it all matters and it matters a lot. What matters more is getting the content right so that when
Mm.
people are engaging and subscribing, they'll stay. So I really like that. And for a publication of Stern's reputation to have to do that says that essentially all publishers are having to look at what makes their content stand out.
I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm going to share a little something that I use. I call it one of my money slides. So if you're out
Nice.
there, take a screenshot of this. This is one of my money slides, and this is what I consider to be the SEO or traffic foundation. Right. This is how things are built. It starts with compelling, useful content. If you don't have compelling, useful content, like you've talked about here, that Stern just did, like Danny Sullivan talked about, like we talked about before, everything else collapses. You got to start with this. Then there's technical implementation, the site experience, schema stuff. And then there's stuff that other editors can do. This is SEO stuff, content optimization, author optimization. This is all your EEAT, your experience, expertise, authority, trust stuff, how shareable the content is and what you're doing to distribute that content and make people aware of that content. All of this builds upon each other, and it starts with the compelling, useful content, like you just said Stern did. If you don't have that, then you don't have a media property.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yep.
Which again, I guess, again, we didn't plan this theme. It just kind of came up, but it leads us into my last story, which is which I got out of the Press Gazette last week, and it was talking about the Times and how their mantra of fewer, better stories has grown their audience. This is getting back to the unique, compelling, non-commodity content that serves your audience needs. So I'll kind of share this in a nutshell. Bottom line, they cut 25%. They cut their editorial output by 25%, not as a cost savings measure, but they wanted to focus on better quality content. So less content, better content, fewer, better stories is their mantra. Fewer, better stories. And what has it happened to? It says 3 consecutive months of record-breaking audience growth. So here's what it's showing here. Organic search traffic. Remember we're talking about GEO's killing us, generative's killing us. Not for these guys. Organic search traffic to the website was up nearly 30% year on year. nearly 30%. Google Discover traffic was up 150% year on year. Social referral traffic up 100% year on year. It's back to that same thing of fewer stories, better stories, compelling, unique, non commodity content that serves the needs of your audience. So I just thought that was really interesting that this happened to just be this theme that we had throughout this entire session, Jez.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been fun. Are you ready to listen for my AI tool of the week? I wanted to
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
throw
Jez and I we're gonna throw out here, hopefully in each session, an AI tool that we've discovered that we kind of dig. So tell me about your tool.
Yeah, so this is one that's come out this week, really made a noise this week. It's called Anijam.ai, Anijam.ai. And with a single prompt, you can make an animated video. Not only that, it'll create a storyboard, it'll create the characters, it'll create a script, it will lip sync them, it will create the whole show. And this is where things are going. And if you test it out or look at some of the explainer videos for this technology, it is a real wow. And if it's happening now, you can only imagine what will be happening in a couple of years' time. So I just wanted to alert publishers about what's happening in the audiovisual space. And of course, for publishers, they might want to storify a few of their articles or whatever, or make it their own. But I think it's an exceptional technology, and it just shows where things are going.
Things are going to continue to grow and evolve. This is another good use of AI I think publishers can do is how can we use AI to create timelines, to create animated versions of stories. And it's going to tie into the whole video aspect of things down the road where video is growing very rapidly. So yeah, I love that. I love that, Jez. I'm gonna have to check out that tool.
Yep.
Well, I think that's about it for this week. We probably hit our time limit. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think there was a really good, strong theme throughout the show.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So I appreciate this so much. Always a lot of fun doing these for you here. And until next time, we will talk to you guys later.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.